After I was teaching for Farboards actually at a second ancillary studio for about a year, and I just wasn't getting to lessons with Farboards, and I was
Right.
missing. I was enjoying teaching, but I wanted to learn more too. So I asked him, like, who should I study with? Who's good? And he said, well, he named 2 or 3 guys. Then he said, well, Paulie's the best. Because he was sort of a phenomenon at the time. Paulie Zink is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's a gung fu master. So I spent 11 years studying with Paulie Zink, a style called Kwar, and that was just in a garage in Burbank, really kind of old school.
Yeah.
And I did that for about 11 years. Jiu-jitsu after that, and also Aikido. I journeymaned my way around a lot of different things.
Sure. Okay. Paulie's sort of a legend. I mean, Fairboy's still around, and he's
Absolutely.
he's
He's been in
doing a lot of
business
things.
for like 30 years now.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
he's had
it's
a big
amazing.
effect. And Paulie, so you've seen Paulie's influence like sort of spread quite a bit, right?
Yeah, he's very behind the scenes. He's the guy in the shadows who like created a bunch of stuff, and nobody knows who the crap he is,
Yeah.
which is a shame because unless you're in the gung fu community in like in the 80s, you probably didn't know he did gung fu,
Right.
And he was a phenomenon at the time. He was just
Yeah,
amazing.
when he won Long Beach and did all that
Yeah,
stuff.
and that level of flexibility, we'd never seen that before, that kind of energy and agility. You'd seen wushu guys who could do the acrobatics, but you didn't see traditional martial arts with that level of athleticism. Profoundly different than anybody you'd ever seen. You couldn't be in a room with Paulie without noticing that.
Yeah.
First time I saw him, it said, there's some line in Apocalypse Now where the crazy photographer meets the Kurtz out in the jungle,
Yeah.
and he says, he's enlarged my mind. I felt that way when I saw Paulie. It's like, humans can't move like that.
Yeah.
That's not, and especially men, you can't do that. You can't have that flexibility, you can't have that agility, that power. But he did, he had all those things in spades. And people just looked at him, basically he was magical.
Yeah, I remember. I had
Yeah.
the same experience. I mean, he came over to your place, and all he did was walk in and lay down on the floor to chat, and I couldn't take my eyes off him because he just didn't look like anyone else. He
No,
just,
you watch him sit,
like
squat,
like a
stand,
cat,
and
like
walk.
an animal, like a
totally,
something.
Totally
Yeah.
different. Changes the way you move, that stuff.
Yeah.
So you want a little piece of that from him,
Yeah.
And
When I think about him, I always think I've never seen anybody as comfortable in their own body. Like that guy was just absolutely fine, like a leopard or something. Just could just lay down and.
you didn't know a body could do that.
Yeah.
It just wasn't in your consciousness that people can move and be that way and behave that way. It's just wasn't in your consciousness.
Yeah.
You don't think of gymnasts in the same way, even though they might have a commensurate level of flexibility or strength or something, but they move in such an artificial way.
Right.
Anybody doing a backflip or a routine on the rings or the bars or something, it's very contrived looking. It's almost mechanical, and the weird sort of posturing that they do in between the stuff, and the very stiff militaristic look, it just doesn't look natural. So you see somebody like Paulie, I'd have him over for dinner and stuff, and like I noticed my friends would be staring at him, and it never kind of went away. You were always pretty fascinated just by him physically.
Yeah.
Even though your friends, you're talking, you're chatting, you're eating, you're watching him move his fork to his mouth, and it's enlarging your mind a little bit, it's expanding your possibilities. And so I think he was really influential in the yoga world. You wouldn't have yin yoga if it wasn't for him. All this stuff
Right.
about animal movements, people doing bear walks in the gym now and stuff. We just call that gung fu.
Yeah.
Moving around like animals is like the original Chinese exercise. That was qigong. That's what you did. You imitated nature by acting like a beast.
Yeah. I think
And,
there's a lot of emphasis now on, there's sort of, fitness has really expanded a lot, I think. But I think this, mobility, the concept of mobility is really interesting in that.
And not understood in the slightest yet.
Yeah,
I mean, they've studied everything else. They've done like 2 studies on, and they're wrong. Even though like the premise of these studies are completely wrong. They never talk to like dancers,
Right.
people who move and need that level of flexibility to do what they do.
Right.
They don't talk with those people.
That flexibility for a purpose, right, that
Right.
we used to talk about.
Athletic flexibility.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I think people want a quick fix. They like things that are short, and in the CrossFit world, maybe that's really popular. It's it's got to be kind of painful and intense, and then ooh yeah, that's great, and move on.
Right.
I feel like the yoga world and the mobility world are still very separate, and strangely so, right? I mean, the idea of flexibility or mobility for fitness, I think it's almost like it's a third thing. Like there's fitness, and then there's yoga, and then there's mobility. But
And I think it's actually gone the wrong way. Like, I think the fitness industry has really influenced the yoga
right.
to make it a form of fitness. I mean, we've talked about this. You see yoga buns classes. What is that? Did the naked sadhu under the tree think about how his ass looked like? You know, that wasn't the reason he was doing yoga. So I think it's mostly been co-opted by fitness. You don't even see flexibility in yoga. I would teach a yoga class at a gym, and this happened all the time. Someone would come up to me after class sometimes and say, "Yo, you're extremely flexible. Wow, how did you do that? How did you get that?" Do yoga? We just took the class together. This is how they would ask, "No, were you a dancer and do martial? You know, what did you do? How did you?" You know, and so it wasn't even people's consciousness to go do yoga to get flexible. It had
Right.
been completely co-opted by fitness. The gyms did that to yoga.